Said, kid, he said, I backed up down there at that sale barn, Salem. Said, I backed up there to the chute, and I opened up the truck, and I said, watch the bull, boys.
Welcome to the Mason Miller Show. I'm Mason Miller with my co-host Clay Miller, and we're joined tonight by Blake Summers. Blake, how you doing?
Real fine. How you doing?
Real fine.
He's excited to be here.
Pumped up.
Hardly control himself.
That's right.
Couldn't wait all day at work to get here.
That's right. Been thinking about it for weeks.
Well, why don't you tell us what sodas you want to try tonight, and we'll.
I'm going to go with the Grapette.
The first pick over there by.
It says it's made with real sugar. I don't know what else it would be made with, but it says it's enjoy Grapette soda, thirsty or not. So apparently you can drink this even if you're not thirsty.
It doesn't matter.
Right. So
if you're thirsty, it'll be good.
And it says
if you're not thirsty, it'll be great.
And it says it right there, so it's got to be
Well, if
true.
it didn't have sugar in it, what's the point?
Sure.
Why would you drink a soda if you didn't want any sugar?
So people that try to be healthy. What else is looking appealing to you?
Well, I think I'm going to try
With the glazed donut?
the glazed donut.
And you'll be the first to.
I'm going to beat the guinea pig.
I bet it's sweet.
We're going on a limb there. Why don't you grab that and there you go. So you want to pop those open, Mace, and which one you want to try first?
Let's go with the glazed donut.
All right. First up, the glazed donut. It does smell like a glazed donut.
That tastes a lot like a glazed donut.
Oh, you guys just dove right in, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't
I want to kind of savor it, smell it first.
swirl it.
You wanted to hold it, feel it.
That is just like a glazed donut. That's crazy.
What do you think, Blake?
Actually, I really thought it'd be a lot sweeter than it is. It's not that bad.
It's
you
kinda
like- I think
think,
it's
you
pretty
think
tasty.
glazed donut, that's pretty sweet. But that,
Is it
It
kind of
wasn't
like
too bad.
Is it kind of like when you got married? You thought it's a little. You thought it'd be a little sweeter, but then it is, or not? No, I'm just kidding.
it was,
You're married to an angel. I'm kidding.
well, sometimes.
Well, who's more happily married?
Oh, me for sure.
Then who?
For sure. Him or
Farrah?
yeah.
Would you forget her name? Who is more happily married? Would you say if somebody said, "Are you more happily married," or is Farrah more happily married?
I probably have to say I am.
I believe that.
Because I'm, well, I can't say what I am in her eyes a lot of times.
An angel,
Yeah.
Delicate angel.
Well, I've heard that you'd probably be more upset. Like back in the day, Kenley said that she broke up with you and you cried.
Oh, yeah.
Who's Kinley?
So, Blake, what do you like to do in your free time when you're not cashing checks?
Spend time with family and friends.
Why do you laugh?
Doesn't seem
You are a genuinely good family person. You're a tight knit family.
We spend a lot of time with family, but I've got a few hobbies that I like to do too in my free time.
What are those hobbies?
Well, I like to ride horses and team rope, and also like to coon hunt and turkey hunt.
all at the same
Any
time.
sort
No, not all at the same time.
So of all those hobbies, which one have you done the longest, and which one's your favorite? If you had to pick one.
Well, I probably rode horses longest.
Yeah.
And I would have to say, if you're going to say I could only do one of those things and have to give the rest of them up, I'd probably still ride horses.
What about the coon hunting, though? You've done that since we were little kids. I can remember being in junior high, and, I'd do homework and go to bed at 9:30, and you would go out and hunt in February till 2 a.m., and then get up and do it all over again every day.
Yeah.
You have to love that.
Yeah. It's a passion.
So I got a question. Can you shoot the coon, or do you still have to cover your
No,
left eye?
I graduated from that. I kind of went to using a scope, not open sights, to where I can see him through a scope.
So
with both eyes.
How would
open.
you hold the gun if you couldn't see? Would you have to rest it? I don't understand. Why didn't you just wear?
Well, I can't wink. I can't close one eye. Never have been able.
Why don't you just wear like a patch over it then?
Well, you could, but it's
Wouldn't
just easier just to cover your eye with one hand and hold the gun with the other,
I
Well,
guess.
or shoot with both eyes open.
so the one time I
feel
went,
natural.
the one time I went with him on a serious coon hunt was after a high school basketball game, and I'm home, and it's 11 o'clock at night or something, and I'm down in the basement, and there's a knock on the door, and he comes.
Probably a weeknight.
Probably a Tuesday night game, and he comes in, and he's like, "Hey, let's go back here behind your house. We lived out in the country. Let's go back here." And all right, I'll go one time. So we go back there, and it's cold. I mean, it's January or February, and we're going back there, and he turns these dogs loose in the river bottom, and they take off. And he's like, "Oh, all right, let's go." We're following them, and I think they treed something. So we're going walking along the river forever, it feels like. And we finally get to one, and there is a coon up in there, and he's shining a light on his head, and he pulls out his gun to shoot this thing, and he's holding the gun like this and covering his eye with his left hand and shooting this thing. Shoots it, gets it, and then the dogs take off again down the river, and we walk for hours and miles. I mean, in the middle of the night, and we're not sure where we are.
Was it cold outside?
Yeah, it was January, so
Ooh,
it was cold.
But
when we finally are like, it was before you had cell phones or GPS or any of that, so we kind of were just following the river. So we finally come out, and we're like, okay, we know where the road is. It's that way. We come out. We're miles down the road. And so we're walking for hours along this road all the way back. But still, to remember this day, that was my first and last experiences of coon hunting. But it was still funny.
Didn't he scare Grandpa when he walked up to the door and was banging on it at 2 a.m. or whatever?
That was another time.
Oh, that was a separate time. I thought that was the last time.
Yeah, no, he treated a coon. His dogs treated a coon back behind our house. It was like 2 a.m, and there's banging on the door. Yeah, my dad goes to the door with a gun in his underwear and knocks on the door, and Blake's standing there. And what was the conversation, Blake, when he...
I can't remember something about what the hell are you doing? And I just told him, and he's like, I wish I'd have known it was you. I wouldn't have got up or something like that. It's been a long time ago.
Else, might have been a little different.
Well, he cut a rotten tree down.
Blake.
He asked if he could cut it. He's like, hey, there's a coon up in the street. It's hollow. You care if I go back there?
Yeah, it was inside the tree.
Right.
And I wanted to chop a hole in the side of it to get the coon out.
Well, of course.
Yeah, he didn't care.
No. It was a miracle nobody got shot that night. It was a good part.
Tell us a little bit about your background, Blake.
Well, I come from a long line of love.
So, I mean, you guys obviously went to high school together.
No, we just met tonight, actually. It was the first time. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying.
yeah.
Yeah, I've known Clay since first grade.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think we had, did you have Mrs. Russell in first grade?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were in first grade together.
I spent most of my time in the back.
I
with
didn't
my
know him in
desk facing the wall.
kindergarten because he lived in town at that time, and he went to kindergarten in the morning, and I went to kindergarten
They had separate
in the
times?
afternoon.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Back then.
One of the earliest memories I have of Blake was when we were when we were in the same 4-H club when we were little, and it was after a meeting. We were do you remember when we were out there, and we were probably in 7th grade or something, and your sister would have been in about 5th grade or so. But I can remember you guys fighting like cats and dogs and getting into it all the time at a full of pep meetings and all that kind of stuff. But those were officially the probably good old days back then.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't specifically remember fighting with my sister at a 4-H meeting, but I'm sure we did because we fought all the time.
You probably blocked it out because actually it was pretty equal back then. Because Jamie could bring it back in the day.
Yeah, she could.
Yeah, I went to the 4-H grounds one time for dog training, and that's the last time I'll ever go back there because my dog...
The dog puked and Mason cried.
We were walking up to the place to the training, and she was already throwing up because I was pulling the leash so hard. She wouldn't calm down.
She was probably nervous, too. She probably never been around.
Well, she was a puppy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it
so
was terrible.
Mason. Mason was about 6, and so
It was miserable.
He bawled.
You dragged me there. It was a terrible time.
That's when we knew he was a natural with animals.
Pretty much, yeah, if you couldn't tell from that. I had to quit.
City kids.
Yeah. Something like that.
So one of the best memories I have with Blake, I mean, there's been a lot of them, but it was after basketball games and junior high and high school riding home. Sometimes I would ride home with him and his family since we lived close by, and we'd get his dad talking about stories that he did. So his dad, both sides of his family are from Cowden. So his dad would talk about stories back in the day because they were ornery down there, and it was never anything bad. It was just they were just ornery guys. But
right,
I think my dad, like when he was in high school, he went to school about half the time and skipped about the other half.
Yeah, and it was a different world back.
You could do that and get away with it.
Yeah.
I mean, great guy and all that. But anyway,
Good
we'd get him
days.
talking. We'd always want to get him talking about stories. Do you remember the story? And I've talked to you about this before, but one of my favorite ones all the time is when he and 3 other guys got caught skipping, and the principal made him tell him about him having to mow the yard.
Yeah, so they got caught. They supposedly left school to go mushroom hunting.
Which that seems like a really valid reason to me.
Yeah, exactly. But one of their buddies wanted to go with them, and they wouldn't let him. So when they didn't let him go, he went and told on them, and they got caught. Well, then the principal decided he was going to make them mow the school property, which is probably 5 or 10 acres with push mowers.
Acres.
I would
with
Yeah,
push mowers.
acres.
Ever.
Yeah. And I can't remember, they would act like they were.
He said he put up one on each side of the building so they couldn't
See each
So
other.
they couldn't,
be
yeah.
around each other. And the principal would patrol and just walk around each side of the building is the way I remember it.
Yeah. And they would, he'd leave and he'd dump the gas out of the mower. And he'd come back and he'd be like, mower's out of gas.
So he keeps walking around about every 15 minutes, and every time he comes back around, the guy's like, oh, man, this mower's empty again. So the principal's like, man, you're going through a lot of gas. You guys are really going through a lot of gas. So he brings back that gas, and they finally get it all done. And about 3 days later, there's all these yellow burn spots where they turn the mowers
dump the gas out.
Yes.
What did the principal say about it?
I don't know.
Man, you guys are running
back
through
in
the-
those days, they didn't say anything. They just went on about their business. Today, you'd probably go to jail.
Right.
Yeah, probably.
Have to have therapy. And
Yeah.
You guys got away with a lot of stuff in high school, too. It's even changed from when you guys were in high school to now. It's a huge change.
we were pretty mild in high school.
We really were. I mean, we didn't.
But still, I mean,
I like to think that we were, tried to do crazy stuff, but we didn't. We didn't do half of what my dad's generation did, and
But they were. It was never hurtful, harmful. It was just kind of ornery stuff that they did, and we were
Exactly.
even less that way.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, we had fun. Blake has a real talent, actually, from high
Yeah.
school. That
I've heard this, that you had a skill that I've never seen anyone able to do.
Well, it's a skill that imitates the sound of a bodily function that is as good as it or better than any I've ever heard, and actually got me in trouble a couple times and accused of being the culprit, which I was not ever. I would have had I been able to do it, but I couldn't. So Blake has a skill, and I don't know if you want to say it, but he could put his hand up under his shirt in his armpit and without you even realizing it, and slowly pull his arm in, and it sounded like a bodily function, and it sounded just like it, and he would do that oftentimes if we were all in the same class together.
I could pretty well do it without even moving my arm. Really.
No.
I mean, I could.
So would you just sit there and barely?
Well, he just sat here like this,
this.
and you wouldn't even know he's doing it, and it would be slow and loud and
How could
real.
you not laugh? Is my
Well,
question.
You couldn't, and that's the whole point. So all the boys that would all sit back there, we'd all start laughing, and it's a difficult situation for a teacher.
Especially for a sub.
Yeah, because what do you do? I mean, it's what's happening, but who's doing it, and we're all laughing.
It'd be hard to hold back on that one. So you never did anything to, I don't know, any prank that went too far?
Boy, I don't know.
Like, I don't know, blowing up the school almost?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, possibly it could have happened, I guess. The school
There was a chance.
Could have blown up, maybe.
Just that wing.
This is absolutely not, we don't condone this, and I'm not proud of it, and we should never do it. And so anybody ever listening, don't ever do this. It's a miracle we lived. But
and he did it not once, but twice.
we had to
Good
make,
luck.
roll
the
sure it
dice
really
twice.
wasn't a fluke incident.
Yeah, we had to make sure that what we thought just happened really did happen.
Why don't you explain what you did in that chemistry room?
Well, basically, I just turned the gas valve on and lit it right there on the valve instead of lighting a Bunsen burner or anything else. Then later on, somebody, maybe Clay, I'm not sure who, but asked the teacher what would happen if we just lit this valve instead of lighting it. You know, you had to hook a Bunsen burner up to it.
Had to hook a rubber hose to it.
Yeah.
Go through Bunsen burner.
Which
gas.
it really controlled the gas. Where straight off the valve, I mean, you're getting full-fledged. And
especially when you open the valve full open like we did.
Yeah, and he's like, well, it's not a good idea because you could blow up the whole school. So we're all like,
cool, let's do
no
it.
way.
We got to try this one more time.
Yeah, so...
When you made it, what did it look like whenever it came out? Was it just pretty noticeable?
Just a long, like a cutting torch, but only about 3 feet longer.
Yeah. And it made like
How do you
a
not see
loud wind noise.
I don't know how he didn't see it. He probably was.
You probably heard it because he
probably
did
did.
turn around. I was like, oh gosh, whatever you do, guys. And the crazy thing is, thinking about it now, it was Mr. Camden, who was an awesome teacher. And he holds
Very intelligent.
two distinctions, I would
Did
say.
he know a lot about like baseball? Like you could ask him a question and
Walking encyclopedia. He could tell you what, like, Joe DiMaggio batting average was and whatever. I mean, he was a walking encyclopedia of knowledge. But it wasn't just baseball. I mean, he was just extremely intelligent man and a great guy. I mean, we loved Mr.
Wasn't
Camden.
he a pretty big guy? Like
He holds two distinctions in my mind as teachers. One, he is the biggest and strongest. He's probably the naturally strongest teacher we've ever had. Coach anything.
Hands down.
Oh, crazy big and strong, but also extremely brilliant. So, which makes it doubly crazy that we actually that you did that because.
Oh yeah, if he would have caught me, it's hard telling what he'd have done to me.
Yeah, and back in those days, it wasn't
done it.
you wouldn't have held back either.
No,
No,
I don't think
Especially
so.
for doing that.
You went flying out of there.
Was that chemistry room still on the far end?
South end.
Same
Yeah.
place as it is now, I'm sure.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, that would have blew up the whole wing of the school.
again, disclaimer: we do not condone it. It was stupid. Don't ever do that again. So.
Triton Tees is a locally owned and operated business right here in Shelbyville, Illinois. They specialize in Lake Shelbyville apparel, and their products can be found at Lithia Springs Marina, Jake's Antiques, or on their website, TritonTees.com. Make sure to give them a look.
Welcome back to the Mason Miller Show. We're joined by Blake Summers, and we're going to try out the soda that he picked, his second one, and it is the Grapette.
I think I
Oh,
like
okay.
this one better. I'm looking forward to this one.
I've heard a lot of old people say that they drank Grapette back in the day.
What are you saying? Since you think I'm going to like this one better?
I mean, someone did call you an older gentleman the other day.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
Then you wanted to go there and
I'm like
Burn their house
Benjamin
down.
Buttons. I'm literally getting better every day, I feel like.
I found my first silver hair. I mean, it's right up here. It's coming, and it's white. It's not even gray. Straight up white.
Yep.
But
Happens.
You'll have that.
You'll have a lot more of them.
You'll have that on your bigger jobs.
On them bigger jobs, they'll get you. Taste this.
Ooh. I tell you what, you just can't go wrong with grape
I
soda.
know.
Can
That
you?
is good.
I like anything grape. That's
Grape
what
is
when I
good.
seen it, I thought I'm having that.
I'm going to take another swig of that.
That's gooder than taters.
You know, it has a pretty good, it's got a pretty good head on it
You say
for
good.
grape.
You say gooder and taters.
That is good. That's better than the old glazed donut.
It is. The glazed donut is
It surprised me. So do you think that strawberry one, do you think the Rat Bastard root beer was better than the strawberry?
for me, the Rat Bastard, if for a traditional root beer, is the best one I've tasted yet. But for something a little
old-fashioned.
different, I like this grape one. This is really good. I would strongly recommend either one of those two so far for me.
Blake is 2 for 2 tonight on the soda picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. So
No surprise.
It's not.
So, what do you do to provide for your family, Blake?
Well, I have a big garden.
You're a really big garden.
No, I
Do you spend a lot of time in the garden?
yeah.
I bet.
What do you grow?
Meat.
Corn.
Meats.
Corn.
It's an all corn diet.
No, I work. I'm a lineman, rural electric lineman. Been doing that for 24 years now.
Has it really been 24 years?
24, yep. It was 24 in
Man.
April. Time flies.
And recently promoted.
Yeah.
Which you're really happy about.
Your picture that they posted, you looked over at
Oh gosh, I wish I could put that picture up on the screen because that is hilarious.
It's like a mugshot.
Actually,
It
that
really is.
picture was not a
You said it
current
was taken
picture.
year
Yeah,
before.
it was taken way back when they were just doing pictures for new ID cards.
So it didn't capture your full level
No,
of emotion.
not at all. Not
Right.
at all.
What do you think the picture would have looked like if they would have
Well,
retaken it?
I'd have been ecstatic.
Would have been like those old Toyota commercials when we were little that were the guys jumping at the end with his fist in the air.
Yeah, something like
You're
that.
really
You'd
excited.
probably do the Ricky Bobby, the number one with the.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
But you can't wink, so you probably can't do that
You're
one.
not first, you're last.
Do you want a little bit more of this Grapette?
Hell yeah.
It's pretty tasty.
You thought you'd never ask.
You're gonna go through that whole thing. I have to take a sixer home with you.
Good stuff.
So, Blake, we grew up with some interesting folks, and one in particular we didn't actually grow up with, but was it your dad? I think was little whenever he was around this person, and then shared the story with you, and we've all heard it several times. But it's an oldie but a goodie. You've got to share with us from beginning to beginning because it's one of my favorites. You know what I'm talking about. So can you tell us a little bit about one of the old time favorite characters that we've never met? Make sure you're right in that microphone because we don't want to miss any of this. What was the guy's name?
Well, I think you're probably referring to the one and only Enos
Yeah.
Cypher.
And what did he do for a living?
Well, he was a jack of all trades, but I know he hauled a lot of livestock.
And back then, there
He
was a
would-
lot of guys that did that.
Yeah,
right?
he would
Straight
come.
trucks.
He would come straight to your farm.
Is this back in the 70s or when would this be?
Oh.
60s, probably 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s,
Mhm.
maybe even before the 50s.
So he'd been around for a long time.
Well, I mean, that's the way they got their cattle to sale barn, I mean, guys didn't have big trailers and stuff. You'd call somebody like this, and they'd come and haul your cattle for you.
Mm-hmm. And probably back then, it's probably crazy. Probably charge them $1 or something.
Yeah,
to haul a cow to town.
Right.
you
Right.
know? But yeah.
So Enos, this was one of the things he did, right? And then
Yeah.
he hauled for people around.
Yeah, as far as I know, he did that for years, and I think he even actually worked on sale day. I think he worked at the sale barn.
So was this your grandpa that he was hauling for that day?
Yeah, my grandpa,
Little baby Ricketts was out there.
and but I think my dad was older. I mean, he was probably out of high school. I'm
Oh, really?
guessing. Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. So I'm early 70s probably when this happened, and they had a bull, and it was mean, and it got out. And long story short, they finally caught him and got him in, and they called Enos to come and haul him off.
Because they were wanting to get rid of him, right? Because he was mean. They didn't want him around.
he was
anymore.
mean, and he'd gotten out, and they didn't want to deal with that.
Did he try to
anymore.
take a run at your grandpa?
Yeah, I think when they were trying to get him in after he was out, he took at my grandpa and actually got him down a little bit, and the neighbor got him off of my grandpa, and they got him caught and put in the barn and had Enos come to haul him off.
So once they do that, a lot of times you'll get rid of them because they learn they can do that, and it's not safe to have them around.
Well, yeah, nobody wants any kind of mean livestock. So.
Right. So they call Enos to come out, and then what happens?
Well, he comes out there, and he backs his truck up to the barn where the bull is, and they load him on the truck. And
Can you imitate Enos at all
early.
for us?
well, just from stories I've heard, I can imitate him from what I've heard. I didn't witness it in real life, but
Right.
I know I do know what the man looked like. I mean, I remember what he looked like. I was old
Right.
enough. I've seen him. He loaded him on his truck, and he told my dad and said they were taking the bull to Salem because the sale at Shelbyville had already been over for that week.
Mm-hmm.
It's once a week. So the next soonest sale was at Salem, so that's where they were going to take him. And he loaded him on his truck, and he told my dad and my grandpa, he said, well, I guess you know, kid, he said, I can't haul a bull down the interstate without a halter on him. And my dad said, well, he said, if you can get a halter on him, go ahead and put a halter on him. I don't care.
Right.
And I guess he tried to put a halter on him from on top of his truck, which would be impossible.
So he's up on top of this rack trying to reach down and drop a halter.
Yeah,
in
drop
on
it
him,
down
right?
through the stock rack.
Which doesn't sound like it'd work.
Because these trucks were like big boxes with slats, just wooden slats all around it. So he's on top trying to reach down.
Just
in
stock racks, but they also had a top on them.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he's on top of it and dangles a halter down in there, and the bull just flings his head and hits the roof of the truck and about knocks Enos off the truck, and he's like, well, you big bastard, I guess we won't put a halter on you. So anyway, he hauls the bull off. I don't know, my dad sees him the next week or whenever and said, hey, Enos, how'd you make it with the bull? He said, I guess you made it all right. And he said, you know, kid, he said, I backed up down there at that sale barn, Salem. Said, I backed up there to the chute, and I opened up the truck, and I said, watch the bull, boys.
And they didn't pay much attention to him, did they? They thought,
No, they didn't
big
think
deal.
much of it. And he said after that big bastard jumped 2 or 3 of those 6-foot gates, he finally stopped.
I've heard that story probably 50 times in my life, and it still makes me
the
laugh.
But like, I'll be sitting in class one day and I'll think about that story, and it still makes me laugh just thinking about it.
You know what makes me not laugh is the thought that you're sitting in class and you're thinking about that instead of thinking about what you should be thinking
There's
about.
not much
in
else to
class.
think about.
That's not good. Better edit that.
I know where he's at. I used to sit and daydream in class all the time.
So there's all kinds of characters that we grew up with that we talk about all the time that really weren't. I mean, I guess looking back now, they're characters, but they were just neighbors and just all really good people. And a couple of them were Gleason and Gaylord Reagan that you and I and Craig and all them grew up around there and would work for or with or whatever. And did you have much experience with any of those guys? Any funny?
Yeah, actually, Gleason. Of course, we raised hogs. My dad raised hogs my whole growing up. But Gleason would actually come to our house often and haul pigs off.
Was he the one that was a veteran?
Yes, he was a veteran.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
And they were brothers, and they lived in the same house, and they wore bib overalls all the time. They wear a rope belt, and they worked for everything they ever got. Honest as the day is long. Great people, hard workers.
They actually, my dad's dad, my grandpa, was their first cousin.
Oh, really?
His mother and their dad were brother and sister. Gleason was at our house a lot when I was a kid. And he'd even come, my mom would have him over for supper or whatever,
Yeah.
and he loved it. They were something else.
Gleason, by the time that they would buy hay from us sometimes when I was a kid, and I would go over and help them put them up in their barn, and they would use their corn dump to put it up in there, run it up, and I'd go up in the barn. And they were getting pretty old by then, and Gleason wasn't so well, but Gaylord was out there with me, and I remember I was up there doing it and stacking it, and he'd sheared a pin in his tractor that was the PTO that was running that corn dump. So I came back down out of there, and I had our like 40-20 John Deere, and I'm like, there may be a bolt or something we can stick in there. He's like, oh, I might have one around here somewhere. And we go walking over, and he's got this hen house that, I don't know, it's probably 8 feet by 8 feet. It's a little.
Not very big.
No, but still big enough. And he opens his hen house up, and I'm thinking, well, maybe he's got tools or something in there. He opens it up, and I'm not kidding you. It is nothing but nuts and bolts, and it must have been a foot deep across this entire.
The whole floor.
The whole
there had
floor wasn't even
tens
in.
Of this little building.
No, it was just tens of
I
thousands.
think I might have one.
Tens of thousands of these.
But see, that's the way they were. I mean,
saved
they
everything they ever had in their life.
You've been walking down the road before, and all of a sudden you may see a nut or a bolt or anything, something like that. They're the type of, they would pick that. They'd pick that stuff up and keep it, no matter what.
Didn't you say like they pull over the side of the road and get out? I thought that was what they did.
Yeah,
I saw
and
someone on the side
they
of the road
used
they could
to,
use.
after the farmers would pick corn, they'd go walk the fields, and whatever ears of corn the combines didn't get, they'd pick them up. They'd take them home, feed their cows with it.
Gaylord and Gleason would drive that truck like he's talking about, like Enos did, that was a whole livestock, a great big straight truck. And yeah, in the fall, they'd come by and ask my dad, like, hey, you care if I go down and pick up, because combines would miss ears of corn back in. They probably don't miss it anymore. But
Well, they do, but
not
not
like
as
they
much,
did. Yeah, it used to be a lot. Like
Yeah.
I would pick up and get a quarter for a 5-gallon bucket of ears of corn. You could do that all day long. He'd go down there and pick that up, and he'd spend days. He'd comb that field and take every ear and throw it in there, and then that's what he'd feed to his cattle through the winter.
Didn't they have like a bunch of old cars too, and
old
and
vehicles,
pasture?
trucks, and a bunch of them.
And they never would let them go, never sell them or anything like that.
They had trucks from the 50s and everything else that would have brought a fortune probably, and they literally sank into the
earth,
into the dirt
Into-
because they sat there for so long that when
Just
we
settle.
were little kids, they'd be parked out there and rusty, and by the time we were in high school or after, they were down up to their doors,
Jeez.
So neat time though, neat people.
I can remember going down there like for whatever. My dad would go down there to get something. Maybe he needed a nut or a bolt.
That's the place to go.
He knew where to go. But even after we moved from there, when I got older to where I can remember things, we would go there. We'd go there trick or treating, or we'd just stop by there.
What would they give you
on
when
a
you went to
Sunday.
the door?
Oh, you never knew what you were going to get.
Probably canned good or something.
A canned good with the label peeled off of it. Sometimes.
Didn't
One time they gave me, this is honest to God truth, one time trick or treat, they gave me a brick of Philadelphia cream cheese.
What do you do with that? You can't put it in a bag.
You say thank you, and you take it.
You didn't say nothing and just,
no, I know that.
you waited and you got in the car and you're like, Mom, they gave, what is this?
And then your mom used it in something. that was, I mean, you're talking about different. I mean, those are people that scratched and clawed for everything
I'm
they
not
ever
even
got
sure.
in their life.
I'd have to ask my dad, but
they had
I'm
indoor
not sure
plumbing?
that they had water, I'm sure, but I don't know if they had an indoor toilet. I don't think they did.
A lot of people
maybe.
didn't. I mean, your grandpa didn't
Till
have indoor
later.
plumbing till he was
Right, yeah.
in whatever age.
I remember him saying that.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, those folks were great people to grow up around, though. I mean, they really were. And I hate it that they're not still around, because it made you understand, value hard work, appreciate everything.
Didn't he say something like when they were on the boat getting ready to go to war about the
Yes.
Statue of Liberty?
Yeah. It was World War II, and they were headed out to wherever.
Headed out to
And
Europe, right?
shipped
Go
off.
fight in Germany.
He said that all of them on the boat were, pretty down in the dumps and waving at the Statue of Liberty as the ship went by, and see you, old girl, probably never see you again, and all this. And he's like, I'll see you, old girl, I'm coming back.
And it wasn't easy. He didn't have an easy ride either, did
No,
he?
he was wounded, and the story he told was that I'm not going to get this right, but he laid in the jungle.
No, it wasn't the jungle. He was out there in, it probably would have been France somewhere, but it was winter time.
Yeah.
His gut, I mean, he'd been shot.
He'd been
in the
shot
gut.
open.
Holding his gut and laid there, played dead, and
Yeah.
the enemy walking all around him.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't
they
it for
didn't
like
do nothing
2
because
days?
they thought he was dead. Yeah, I don't remember how long it was, but that was that was the story. Yeah, that's tough right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're holding your guts in with your hand,
And the pain
and
he must have.
also not making
A sound.
peep or a sound or a movement at all, because as soon as you do, you're going to take another bullet
And probably
be in the head.
probably being a year or two older than you are right now doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the difference. That's why those folks, I think, are so amazing, that what they dealt with, and it's sad there's not more of them around to keep telling those stories of what they went through, but they lived their whole lives like that, though. And I was always in awe of them, and always, they were entertaining because they were funny, but it was amazing how they were always in good moods too. Like they didn't need much to be happy, and I think that was
just the way it was.
Right.
That's all they knew.
The way they were brought up and
Right.
the way it was.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more from Blake on the Mason Miller Show.
Hi, this is Carol Cole from Jake's Antiques. If you're looking for a unique shopping experience, come see us at 1717 West Main in Shelbyville, where we showcase the best of old and new in one location. We offer a large selection of antiques, reproductions, and colorful garden art. Come see us Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Welcome back to the Mason Miller Show, where we're joined by Blake Summers. And Blake, tell us a little bit about your job experience. And I know you've used to be employed at a certain place that is here in town.
Oh, yeah, Jake's Antiques.
Tell us a little bit about you working there.
Well, that would have been in like 92.
well, it was a co-op, right? You were in high school.
Yeah, it was my senior year. And there for the short period of time that I worked there, probably from January, February, maybe till May, I pretty well ran the show.
So do you? Go ahead.
Told Jake what to buy and what to
Right.
price
What's
stuff
hot.
at, all that kind of stuff.
He never made more money after that in that span of those
Well,
couple of months.
I put him on the map.
Then he started to blow
You feel
up.
like you took him to that next level?
Yeah, probably.
So why did you ever leave then?
Greater calling.
It's kind of like when Jordan went to play baseball.
Kinda.
Just ready for a different challenge.
Yeah.
You already done everything you wanted to do in the antique game.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the retirement plan? Like, do you get a pension from Jake's or not?
Well, I need to talk to him about that.
I think you probably should.
Yeah, because it's been long enough now. I probably ought to start
Drawing.
some of it. Yeah,
Right.
because that's been 29 years ago. Yeah.
That's hard to
Wow.
believe. Yeah.
It'll be 30 years, yeah, because I graduated in 22 and you graduated in 92
That's right. 30 years.
on the dot.
Whoa.
So
Pretty wild.
So when did you? So you decided to trade that in and decided you would go to. You went to Greenville College,
Yes.
and then when you graduated Greenville College, you decided that you wanted to pursue your love of electricity. Am I right?
Well, when I graduated Greenville College, I had no job.
Like all of us.
Had an education degree, but it was I
Education
graduated
in what?
midterm, so it was elementary ed.
You could have been an elementary teacher.
Elementary ed, yeah.
Man, I didn't know that.
English
been
concentration.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been
Anyway,
so cool.
I graduated midterm, so I graduate at Christmas time.
Right. So
You're not
there's
going
no
to get
jobs.
a teaching job
No.
middle school year.
Right.
Went to work for a carpenter. Earlier, though, that summer, I had talked to the manager at Shelby Electric because somebody told me that in the next year, a couple guys were going to retire. They were probably going to hire somebody. So I
They
went
were
and
looking
talked
for
to
some
him.
English teachers.
Yeah, and went out there, and he's like, well, finish your school and then bring me your resume. So I did. But when I got out of college, I went to work for a carpenter right after the first year, and then went to work at where I'm at now in April.
So during that time, obviously, they're working to keep all the power on for the rural areas all around here. But you also, all those guys head down when there's hurricanes and things like that to pitch in and help out, right?
Yeah, we Rural Electric Association. It's a nationwide brotherhood, I guess you'd call it. I mean,
Yeah.
people.
Maybe driving down Atlanta, and you'll see their
yeah.
co-op. They're
Yeah,
already in,
and
right?
I mean, it's no different if we had to say a major ice storm here. We're not going to have a hurricane here, but a major ice storm or maybe a really widespread tornado
We're just
here
wiped out a
and
big
it just
swath.
wipe us out. We'll call.
All come.
They'll come here too.
Where was your most recent one that you had to travel to?
I went to Lake St. Charles, Louisiana, just this past fall.
With the hurricane down there.
I went down there twice for 2 weeks, both times. I went for 2 weeks, then I was home for 4 weeks and went back for another 2 weeks.
So there's guys from all over down there, right? Where do you stay when you go down there?
Typically on a storm situation, you'll stay in a hotel or something. But down there, this was so drastic that
There were no hotels.
there was no power anywhere. So the hotels were not open. Plus, COVID was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So it made everything 10 times worse.
So the National Guard set up army tents at basically as a small airport.
So you have to camp out for.
Yeah, they were big. They were air conditioned, but big. I mean, they're 300 feet long,
Wow.
100 feet wide, and stayed in those. Stayed on cots, slept on cots.
For a 2 week stint?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
How many of you guys went down there?
6 per group.
So they only let a certain amount of guys go, so they have enough people here to take care of things?
Yeah, we can't send everybody.
Mm-hmm.
They usually try to send whatever the people request, but of course down there that was such a big deal. They would have taken everybody. We could send everybody, but we
Right.
just can't do that.
So where do you go? So if somebody wants to become a lineman, where do you go? Do you train to become a lineman first, or do you get the job, then you go train to be a lineman?
Nowadays you train first. When I came in, I'd never had any schooling for it.
So you get a job, then
None.
they send you.
I got a
train.
job, and then they sent me to
How difficult is
schools.
it to get into lineman school?
Into a lineman school.
Right, yeah.
I think they'll take anybody, a willing body.
It's the difficult part is getting the job afterwards, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Those people keep saying in high school they want to save up and then go to school. I didn't know it was like,
No, I of course I didn't go that route, obviously, but I think if you want to go to lineman school, there's several of them. The closest one being probably in Springfield at Lincoln Land.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only like maybe I don't even know for sure, semester course maybe, and you're done.
So you get your basics to be able to try to
Yeah.
apply to be a
Yeah.
lineman somewhere.
Yeah. You learn how to climb poles and
Mm-hmm.
learn electrical theory and things like that.
And it's probably like anything else. The more
But there's
geographically
there's
flexible you are, you more likely you are to get a job.
Honestly, if you are young and not a homebody, you can go to work and make real good money
Mhm.
right out of school.
did you have to travel around with someone at first to learn, or how did you learn to
Well,
do
I didn't travel around as far as
like an apprentice?
but I stayed right here at home. I mean, I wasn't on the road traveling or anything like that. I worked here.
You
in
just
the
worked
house.
with a crew, and you were the
Yes.
junior guy on the
Yep.
crew and kind of
Yep.
Learn how to do it that way.
Yep.
learn from those guys.
Right. On the job training.
Right.
On the big job.
So now it's you get the training first, and you try to apply, and then you get into a spot, and you start.
But then
working
you
your way up.
still, I mean, it's still that way. I mean, you still start out at the bottom, even if you've been to lineman school.
Sure.
Like when I started, I didn't know how to climb a pole.
Mm-hmm.
These guys that start now, I mean, they've been through all that training,
Right.
but there's still more training that they're going to be sent to,
Oh yeah.
you know.
So much more to learn than just in the school.
Yeah. You learn how to, for example, there's a rubber gloving school, and that basically teaches you how
What
to
does that mean?
work on the power lines while they are energized. I mean, you actually physically grab a hold of them.
Right.
And I mean, some kid right out of school, you know, you're not going to send him up there, okay, go up there and grab a hold of this line and move it or whatever.
You might once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which is more dangerous? Working what you're doing now on a line, as a line with high voltage stuff, or at Jake's Antiques? Which would you think was more challenging?
Well, when Theresa was around, it was real challenges at Jake's. No, in my line of work, you have to pay attention all the time
Yeah.
when you're working with hotline, because it's not forgiving. You don't get a second chance. It
No
can
doubt.
kill you in an instant.
It's interesting to see where people end up.
Because you didn't end up where you got a degree in.
Definitely.
Well,
not.
I got the degree I got because that was my quickest way out of school.
I don't blame you.
So
I mean, it came
Elementary
down
teacher.
to my advisor came to me one day and was like, what do you want to do? You're going to have to decide.
You're like-
and I'm like, well,
Blake said, graduate.
I said, what's my
quick as I
quickest
can.
way out of here? And he's like, education. I said,
Mr.
"Okay."
Summers, teaching
Yeah.
3rd grade.
Never taught a day in my life. Didn't even sub.
Oh, man, you would have been the best sub.
I thought about it.
Well, you could have
When
taught
I
him
was
your
working
trick.
for that carpenter, I thought about turning my name in and start subbing, but I never did do it.
Oh,
You know what
man.
would have been ironic is if
That
you'd
would've
have been
been best.
sitting at a desk as a sub and everybody had been working, and you'd have put your hand up your shirt and done your little trick and then blamed it on some kid. That would have been awesome, because who would have ever thought the sub was doing that? You'd be the best sub ever. But,
Oh, man.
So Farrah is a real
Fun hater.
fun hater. That's what Kimberly, your daughter, calls. She's a fun hater.
Thief of joy.
No, I wouldn't say that.
No, she's not a fun hater.
I just don't think she thinks you're as funny as
Do you think you like
most
to
other people
the
think.
party a little bit more than she does?
Yeah, probably a little.
Very-
Kind of like your mom and dad.
Oh, gosh.
Farrah's a go-getter till about 9:45, 10 o'clock.
That's about like you.
Yes.
That's when I said kind of like your mom and dad, only the opposite. Because Farrah's like your dad.
His dad's like, I mean, you can stay here, but I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Right.
Mom, she'd stay down here all night.
Hey, the patio's
What?
open. Patio and the fire pit's going strong till about 10 o'clock. And then that's when it's time for Clay to go wrap it up, because he's got stuff to do tomorrow.
That's right.
Grapette and what was the other one we had? The glazed donut.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both available at Jake's.
Both were real good.
Real good.
Well, Blake, we really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Hey,
It was a good time.
I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Always enjoy talking about the good old days.
Oh, yeah.
And don't forget, you can get all your Mason Miller Show merchandise, soda, koozies, and coasters at Jake's in Shelbyville, Illinois. And that's all for tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.